Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human nature stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today it's Tuesday and it's August the 29th, 2023. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I'd like to extend to you a warm welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative. And if you're a returning viewer, by all means, thank you for coming back. You know, I always say the tide changes so frequently here on these YouTube streets that you always have to acknowledge where your support comes from. And I want you to know I sincerely thank you for your support. Feel free to like and to share this video. And don't forget to subscribe. And our story today comes from the city of Fayetteville here in North Carolina. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, 11-year-old North Carolina boy charged with manslaughter. I'll provide you with a summary here, and as always, I'll place links to a few of the full articles in the description box. Now, this video today highlights what I consider to be America's evolving public health crisis, and it has to do with guns in the hands of young children, and I do mean young children. And what's even more disturbing to me is what I perceive as a failure to hold some of the adults, those responsible for these young children, a failure to hold them accountable. But today it's all about consequences, yet it leaves one to wonder whether all of the parties involved should bear some responsibility. So picture this. You have a young daughter, in fact, you have daughters, and as a parent, you must work. So you search and to find someone you connect with, someone who, by your estimation, has met your standard of being a qualified babysitter for your children. And one day, within hours of having dropped off your child, you received that dreadful call. Your child was shot, and she's in critical condition, shot inside the home of the babysitter. And our focus today is on this beautiful and active 8-year-old Jenesis Dockery, the pride and joy of her parents. On July 25th, which was last month, Jenesis was dropped off at the home of a babysitter by her parents, and this was a home on Mercedes Drive here in Fayetteville. And this had been a prearranged babysitting agreement, but something very tragic took place inside that home that day, and it resulted in Jenesis Dockery losing her life. Police say the call to 911 came in on the afternoon of July the 25th, and it was placed by the babysitter, the adult in the home. And this is what has been reported about the conversation that babysitter had with the 911 dispatcher. The woman, or the babysitter, I didn't know my son brought a gun from his dad's house, and it fell out of the closet, and it shot the little girl that I'm babysitting, and I need an ambulance now. The dispatcher asked, what part of the body is injured? The woman, her head. The dispatcher asked, is there more than one wound? The woman, I can't tell. The dispatcher then said, honey, is there more than one wound? The woman says, I can't tell. She's awake. It's in her eyebrow. She also told the dispatcher that the gun used was on her countertop. So apparently she had taken the gun that she said, quote, unquote, she said fell out of the closet, struck the girl, and she had taken it and placed it on her countertop. Now, 8-year-old Jenesis was aired back to Chapel Hill, and because of her injury for emergency surgery. And even from the very beginning, we all knew that her condition was reported as critical. But 2 days later, on July 27, 8-year-old Jenesis died from her injuries. And by this time, there's silence all around, while the family is in shock and the community is joining them searching for answers. The only thing we knew was that the woman's son was 11-year-old, but the community had a whole lot of questions, and a lot of them were for that babysitter. What do you mean your son brought a gun into the house? What do you mean your 11-year-old had a gun into your house and you didn't know about it? Where was Jenesis when this gun fell out of the closet and hit the child in the eyebrow? Was there more than one shot? Who allowed this 11-year-old to have access to a weapon in the first place? A whole lot of questions, but we weren't getting any answers. And that silence continued for several weeks while the distraught parents wondered out loud whether there would be any justice for them, and they did hire an attorney. But years they were wondering whether anyone would be held accountable for the senseless killing of their 8-year-old daughter. The community held prayer vigils and then supported the family as they laid their daughter to rest. But yet there was silence as everybody wondered whether any charges would be filed. And here is why the silence took as long as it did. You see, it has to do with the age of the suspect. And as you recall, he's the babysitter's 11-year-old son. You see, I found out that once a complaint is received against a juvenile court counselor reviews the complaint and determine what action needs to be taken. I couldn't believe it, but they said the counselor has three options. One, they can file a petition to initiate a court action. They could close the complaint without taking any action at all, or they can offer a juvenile a diversion. And I guess all of that takes it doesn't happen overnight. It takes some time. Now, we don't know whether this 11-year-old had prior problems with the law, but what we actually found out was pretty shocking. It was alleged there were two guns. Both came from the same relative's home. It was alleged that the 11-year-old had access to the safe and the guns. So he had access to the safe that the guns were in because he knew the combination to the safe. So what's the point of having guns if an 11-year-old can get in and take them out if he pleases to? So it was reported that the guns came from a safe of the home of a relative. And they said he took those guns without authorization. And in other words, they said he stole the weapons. But the question is, why? So many why. Why was he allowed to have the combination in the first place? And even worse, what was he planning to do with those weapons once he had them in his possession? And it was also stated that the 11-year-old had previously been displaying weapons on TikTok videos. He had TikTok videos and he was displaying the weapons. So my God, this was not an isolated incident. And if this is true, it may be one indication of a lack of supervision. But that was all reported, and I have to say again, alleged. And as I already mentioned, the family of Genesis is working with an attorney with the hope of getting answers and seeking justice. Because, once some things like this happen, everybody shuts up. Nobody was saying anything. They hired civil rights attorney Harry Daniels, who echoed their calls for accountability. He also pointed out that, it remains possible that the adults responsible for the guns in the home and the adult responsible for supervising the child who shot Genesis, that they all could face charges. And, it makes perfectly good sense to me. And people have been very vocal about this case, and we learned that on August the 10th, investigators from the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office, they submitted paperwork to the Division of Juvenile Justice, encouraging them to file charges of manslaughter against this 11-year-old. And on August the 12th, we learned of their decision. We learned that the 11-year-old was taken into custody and charged with 2 counts of larceny for 2 guns and 1 count of manslaughter. And because of his age, we may never hear anything else on this case. And in the meantime, the medical examiner's office has released information on Jenesis Dockery's cause of death. Yes, she died as a result of a gunshot wound to her head, but the manner of death was listed as undetermined. And now you have a family who is left to pick up the pieces with a lot of unanswered questions. The father, Mr. Dockery, pictured here with Genesis, he has stated he wants the truth. He wants to know exactly what happened inside of that house that resulted in his daughter being shot in the head. And this further highlights what could have been a more tragic situation. The guns were obviously loaded. There were 2 guns. And both of them were probably loaded. And we know for a fact that one was, because one went off and shot Genesis in the head. So both the guns were probably loaded. And the consequences of loaded handguns in the hands of an 11-year-old are beyond my ability to comprehend. But one thing is certain, you have a family who is experiencing a tremendous sense of loss with few answers, and it remains to be seen whether the adults who are responsible for supervising that 11-year-old, whether they too will face any type of accountability for their son's actions. And that's all I have for you right now. Feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video. And by all means, feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on the bell that looks just like that one, that's the notification bell. If you click on that notification bell, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.